Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Eli, Neil, Brian's Logic, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome one and all.
Morning, morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good evening, Nathan.
Good evening.
Hola.
Sorry for yelling at you to shut up yesterday, Solar. My bad. Was that Solar? Whoever's voice said hello, Nathan, just a moment ago.
No, that was me, Rams.
Rams. Yeah, sorry, my bad, Rams. Yeah.
Shut up, Rams.
Yeah. I don't know who it is
So
till
I
I listen back and
wonder
do the
if
edits.
Dr. Bob's going to arrive for his appointment this today.
What appointment?
No, he ain't coming.
I didn't make an appointment. What are you
The
talking about?
appointment he arranged for himself yesterday.
I see. I'm going to come in and consult for you. I'll make the appointment for you. Hold on, you're not even my doctor. What are you doing? You crazy, batshit insane nonsense head.
It's like going to a doctor and saying, hey, can you give me an appointment? When you're at the doctor's office. Real smart.
Anywho, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
But when do you want to go over
No.
this? Tomorrow, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, let's organise a time to talk about it.
Can we talk about it now? Come on, be reasonable. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
We're gonna need Bob for that.
Oh God, we don't need Bob for that. We'll need R for that.
No evidence, and you're right. We need all for that, and we don't have a radius.
Perhaps we need Rob for that?
Before I let Arwin in, don't mention that we were buttering him up and saying how great he is, okay? Let's just not mention that. Hey, Arwin. Hello? Check, 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 check. No sound. No sound.
Hello?
Hello? Good to have you.
Can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
Didn't catch
Is
your
there
show
a sound
today.
issue?
Busy editing, sorry. Do you have a good show?
All right. Yeah, it was pretty intense. Again, that was good.
Give Arwin props. If you're listening to this, having listened to the pre-show, this will make a bit more sense. But if you do happen to go over to Arwin's show, subscribe today to ARWIJN, that's Arwin channel, for the Flat Earth Early Bird, you get a very different side of Arwin. So we were actually singing your praises, although I just literally told people not to bring this up. But yeah, on Arwin's show, he's very different in terms of the information delivery. It's very much him delivering his actual rhetoric and what he actually believes in, as opposed to playing devil's advocate, which he finds himself doing here quite frequently. So it's a very different tone to... I'm not saying Arwin's got a split personality or anything. He's just good at playing devil's advocate, is all I'm saying. But should you experience his
that's
show,
fine.
it's very different. Go ahead, Arwin.
Oh, that's fine. You can say I have split personality.
I don't think you have
It's
a split
just that
personality.
I'm not entirely sure if the other one agrees.
You're just getting into character for this show now, so Baldwin's being summoned, clearly.
If you haven't subscribed, do it now.
That
Do it
wasn't bad.
now! Come on!
Right. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No.
Maybe from the chopper.
Of the Earth-based...
No, the chopper is not gonna drift.
No, it's not going to drift. I thought it was talking of the rotary variety rather than Earth-based variety. Not of the propeller
Yeah, the
variety.
blades are spinning.
Right. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I don't know where it is. Right now,
Not
it's
out.
kind of gray.
It's not out today by me. It's gray over here as well.
Any evidence
Perfect fishing weather.
Without
Go on, Rams.
without being able to get to it and actually find out what it actually even is, I can't even imagine we could work out how far away it is or how big it is.
What about the moon?
I'm surprised.
Yeah, same
Don't know.
situation, I guess. If we can't get there and test it, then just guesswork.
My youngest daughter, when we went to a swimming lesson yesterday, pointed at the moon and said, was it at the swimming lesson? No, it was in the evening. Either way, she pointed at it and went, what's that? And I was like, it's the moon. You know what the moon is. She's like, moon. I was like, yeah, moon. And then she said, very far away. I'm like, is it? I was like, I don't know. Could be.
It's about 2 AU away.
2 distances to a rainbow. So the sun's 3 distances to a rainbow and the moon's 2 distances to a rainbow. But they appear the same size.
That's
Well,
right.
They were talking about how the first bet on a football game was made in space from the astronauts on the ISS.
Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? No, ISS operates in space, so fake. Can't have things in a presuppositional orbital path falling around sphere-shaped. No, doesn't work. Can't have gas pressure without a container.
Yeah, but it seems
Yeah,
like
I
they're
wa-
ramping it up even more because they talk about that. They talk about stuff they... First of all, how are they getting this dust from Mars and mixing it with human blood to make something stronger than concrete? I don't understand this. They just keep ramping it up and ramping it up. And no matter what they say, if it's on TV or the radio, they're going to believe it.
Yeah. You can just make up any old crap though, can't you? I mean, same applies to Narnia. You know, if I start saying, did you realise that the Ice Queen made the Turkish delight just out of snow? Like, there wasn't any, and then there was some, and it was just made out of snow. What is it with the Turkish delight that isn't real and suddenly is real, and you can't make Turkish delight from snow? But everyone believes it, because it was on TV and they say that Narnia is real.
Well, there's that fantastic example of the broadcast of that War of the Worlds, wasn't it, on the radio? And there was all sorts of people that heard it and believed it, and and there was panic ensued.
And that's when truth was coming out of the radio. Well, I don't know.
Oh, how naive.
Truth, but...
I love it. That was when truth was coming out of the radio. Oh, yeah.
Well, wasn't as it is today, let's put it that way.
You don't think
Yeah.
you don't think
Well,
the powers that should not be didn't immediately recognise the power of transmitting radio broadcasts and what that could be useful for?
Yeah, they did. And a few of the generals, MacArthur especially, said, and Patton said that this will destroy us, the media and the radio.
Well, gas pressure without a container. No. In fact, if you look up the matter in the liquid and gaseous state, both of them require a volume. They require a container. Last time I checked, the outside surface of something doesn't constitute as a container. So they say, well, it's the force of gravity. Um, that's not considered a container in any shape or form. No pun intended.
Nope.
Either.
Just back to the moon landing thing. I remember one of the lines from Math Powerland being, I can't remember the percentage he made up or gave from the made up study that they got this statistic from, but I'm just going to make one up myself. So we'll say 70%. He said something along the lines of 70% of Americans believe the moon landing occurred because they heard it on the radio. Any scientific evidence? Go on.
I was going to say, what do you think the percentage is now?
I just made that percentage up. I think it's at 74% now.
If you heard it on the radio, that's hot stuff.
That's what? I missed that.
No,
That
that's
was
Don in summer.
It's the incredible power of broadcast media. I mean, it was the only source, for information for people back in those days. A lot of people were illiterate, except for the upper classes. And so they depended completely on whatever they were told by the guy in the radio.
And why would he lie? With his very well-spoken voice.
We're told people were illiterate, for me that kind of means people were dumb or something. But it really just means, I guess people weren't their reading comprehension skills were low or non-existent. But even then, I'm not sure that they wouldn't be able to reason logically. There's probably always been, like Nathan said, a segment of the population that could critically think, and then there's everyone else who just whatever.
Yeah, I think it's probably 10% of the population are just pure dumb, and 80% are just average, and 10% are critical thinkers. You don't need to worry about the other 10%. You just have to worry about the 80%. And that's what I see when I hear people on our own side, that's the player side, getting frustrated because they can't convert somebody into their understanding, especially when it's a family member. And you're like, but the majority of people are like described in the Matrix when they're walking around the simulation, and Morpheus is explaining to Neo that most people are hopelessly immersed in the system. They don't want to be taken out of it, and any hint that it could be something that they don't approve of will be fought. You'll be met with aggression. So why endure that? As I said, I don't know if this was in the pre-show or in the live show, but we were talking about Jaren and him saying, I'm sick of telling people go and do your own research and try to convert you and convince you that you need to check out your own beliefs, because most people just don't. They'll just spew their nonsense. So it ends up being, you kind of become a bit apathetic to it and just go, I don't care if you believe me. I became like that very shortly into the debates, I've got to be honest. It's taken Jared longer than me. But you've heard me say it plenty of times. I don't care what you believe, And if you need a detailed description of what I think the world is because you've lost your current faith in what you thought the world was, I'm not going to be the arbiter of that either. I'm not your guru. So, take it or leave it. Research it or don't. I don't care.
I heard something that you probably know, Nathan, but I didn't realize that that part was specifically made for Will Smith and he turned it down. I didn't know that.
Say that again.
The part of Neo was made for Will Smith. They envisioned him playing the part and he turned it down to do the Wild Wild West because they wouldn't let him do a song in the movie.
A song?
Yeah, he wanted to do a rap song in the movie, and they were like, that's not the angle we're coming at.
The iconic song at the end of Matrix is Rage Against the Machine. Truly epic song. Could you imagine if that was Will Smith rapping at the end of The Matrix? Instead of we got Wild West or whatever. It just wouldn't work.
Oh yeah, you're right. That would have been a poop show.
Chocolate's not here to rattle off a terrible improv rap about The Matrix in a Will Smith tone. But there we go. I think Will Smith's a good actor. I think he would have done a good job. If anything, I hate to say this, he's a better actor than Keanu Reeves. So potentially it would have been a better movie for it. But Keanu Reeves did a good job of it. So no complaints. It's a good movie. But then again, if you add a bit of humour from Will Smith into The Matrix, it's so dark, right? It just doesn't lend itself to a bit of Will Smith humour. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know he can play... What was the one he played where he's the last guy on Earth? I Am Legend or something like that. You know, he can play those sorts of roles. He's a good actor, so I don't know. I can't believe he wanted to have a rap at the end of it.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. But he kicked himself in the ass for that. He didn't realize it was going to be iconic.
Oh, yeah, because Will Smith's not iconic. It's not like he's worth millions. I'm sure he's kicking himself now he's penniless. Yeah, whatever. I don't think they work like that. I don't think people in the acting profession think, oh no, I wish I had done The Matrix instead of Wild Wild West. They just go, right, what's my next project? I'll have 5 million for it.
Yeah, but he thought the Wild Wild West was going to be movie after movie. That was the whole irony of it.
Yeah. Okay, I appreciate that Wild Wild West is garbage. And I'm sure when he was making it, he was hoping it would be wonderful. And by comparison, Matrix is one of the best movies ever.
And Kaz Palminteri turned down Tony Soprano.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific evidence of gravity. And he also turned down Sonny Black.
Well, what is it?
What's the definition of gravity?
Which one?
A container.
Exactly my point. Pick one.
Okay, well, we've got the out-of-date 106 years, nearly 107-year out-of-date mass attracting mass. If mass, then mass attracts mass is the hypothesis. Or you've got the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time by way of a causal relationship with the uneven distribution of maths. Maths? My bad. Mass. Yeah, it's all nonsense.
But it is all maths.
Are you trying to tell me that gravity isn't synonymous with container?
What? When I hear gravity, I don't instinctually think about something that will contain something else, no.
Oh.
I think of bending geodesics in space-time in terms of the current rhetoric. I think of pseudo length, breadth, depth, and time. Conceptual mediums in mathematics. That's what I think of. I don't go to containment. I mean, whatever would make you infer that?
Colloquially, it's thought of as anything sort of falling, right? Or weight.
It's what keeps you on Earth. That's what I was told. The only reason I'm not floating away is because the force of gravity keeps me on the Earth.
Yeah, they need to bring it in to justify how everything can stay on the outside of a ball that's spinning at rapid speeds, flying around through a vacuum.
Yeah, well, that was the whole bucket of water spinning round and round in school. See how the water's not coming out? That's why you're not flying off the Earth.
No. They're now not saying the Earth is rotating. Come on.
That's true.
Alrighty then. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Black Swan.
You're gonna need R for that.
Don't you have to presume a sphere to do that as well?
Normally the other way around, but yeah.
There's no evidence of the R value, unfortunately.
Any single
Or I'd still be in the Matrix.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
They're incapable of creating a valid hypothesis or testing one.
No, they could still do it. Right, Arwen?
Wait, what? Say again?
Housekeeping question.
I was too busy typing. I couldn't hear it.
Any viable
Can
evidence?
the fields of astronomy or cosmology actually form a valid hypothesis?
They've got plenty of phenomena to
Well,
study.
not so far, but they should be able to, right? There are lights up there. Now, how they work, yeah, well, that's gonna require a whole lot of inquiry and testing. And then who knows, they might be able to eventually figure out some kind of hypothesis. But I bet you that if they do, it's not really gonna have any kind of serious relationship with the current cosmology as it is believed currently.
I'm going to read out James Richards' super chat. So he says, for Dr. Bob and Globies, quote, "It's not what goes in the mouth that defileth a man, it's what comes out of the mouth that defileth a man." End quote. The earth and water curving is nonsense and defies reality. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, James Richards. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
There has to be, because that's how they use the sextant. But they start from the center of the Earth, right? That's how they get their 90.
Well, they're trying to create a reason for the magnetic field, aren't they? Isn't that why they're trying to describe a molten iron core moving around?
Would be if it wasn't beyond the Curie point of that induction of magnetism. Go on, whoever that was. Was that Adam 10th? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really not the core of their argument, is it?
Boom, boom. Go ahead, Adam.
No, staying on this, to show a two-dimensional circle and to hold the sextant with a stick figure on top of a curved part of that circle and tell us that circle on a piece of paper represents a sphere that we live on, and you're holding a sextant in your hand, and from the surface with the sextant, with your bottom baseline, that's not a straight line, but curving away from you. And on that two-dimensional circle, it's curving away from you left to right. But if you were on the sphere, which is what it's supposed to, represent, it's curving east, west, north, and south. In all directions, it's curving away. But they can't do that on a piece of paper. So they take a circle and say, you see, if you take that starlight and it hits the Earth's surface, the GP of the star, and you continue that to the center, and then where you are, draw a line through your head, through the Earth, your GP, to the center, there you have a vertex. This is how the sextant works. This is how the angle works. You'd be commissioned to Bellevue. I mean, just look at the picture. That is not what's happening. That is what they want you to think is happening, but that is not what's happening. Angles do not work with curved surfaces. Sextant can only work with a straight radius from the GP to your GP. It's so silly when they try to do this, and they're missing the whole argument. How does an angle work? If you can answer how an angle works, the ball is dead.
Cool. That concludes the housekeeping. Do a couple of quick shout outs. So we're going to chat with Brian when he comes off mute, hopefully in the not too distant future. He's a bit tied up at the minute, but when he does pipe up, we'll be talking about his most recent video. Also, Mitchell from Australia is going to get another plug because he did a really, really good show yesterday. Very amusing indeed. And yeah, there's obviously his trolls, his regulars, and all and sundry in his live chat that he interacts with. And does a few presentations. Did a presentation yesterday. Talked quite a lot about homeschooling. If that's your thing, then check it out. But the Flat Earth School runs pretty much daily. I don't know his exact schedule, but certainly maybe Monday to Friday. Maybe he does the weekend. I don't know. But yeah, check him out. Mitchell from Australia.
Homeschool is the way to go. That's what my wife's been doing for the last 11 years.
Yeah, that's great, man.
Yeah, the COVID thing was really handy in that regard because we homeschool and have since the kids were born, so they've been being taught from home, so there hasn't been a real transitional period. But they also do go to school because there's various different lessons that they have that are in schools. Obviously, they're paid lessons, private lessons. It's just interesting. I bring it up because yesterday 10th said, you know, why did I spend all that money on private education and homeschooling? You know, and time is money. You know, your effort in terms of your education of your children is how much you want to invest personally into it. And typically, if you get a lot out of it, which was what was being explained by Mitchell yesterday, you'll put a lot into it. He described it as, you know, it's not just them being educated. They'll often question what we're saying. Therefore, it's us being educated because we go away and research things that we potentially just held dear, taught our kids, and then they go, really? Is that really the case? You go, let's just go and double check. So that kind of level of enthusiasm is, again, something that you can't instill in people. Some people don't want that and haven't got it. I'm not saying people don't love their kids because they send them off to school far from it, but by the same token, that there's a sort of interaction that you want to have. I couldn't deal with sending my kid off to school because I want to interact with the eldest at the moment who's of that age. But by the same token, she is still going to the classes. They cost an absolute fortune and take a lot of time and dedication to get her on a schedule and on timetable and actually sat down doing her English homework. And all those other things. So if that's of interest to you, like I say, check out Mitchell from Australia. He'd go into it. His kids running around with him at the time. Yeah, good stuff. But also, Brian's on. Go on.
So if Brian's here, then I'll just hand it to him. But I want to give another shout out to Made by Jim Bob, also another channel out there who does regular streams, and he is very much into flat earth debate mechanics, knows a lot of arguments, and is quite funny. And he gets some trolls going. So like Sean Hawkins is now all over him. And in a way, I'm actually kind of thankful because that means that Sean Hawkins at least is going to leave me alone with his whining. But Made by Jim Bob is pretty cool. And yeah, check him out.
I haven't subscribed. I've heard his name mentioned 2 or 3 times and I haven't subscribed. So
all right, I'll post the link to his channel in the chat.
Cool. I'll subscribe.
I listened to him, Nate. Very eloquent and exceptionally well informed, you know, with the current arguments. I've never heard of him before and pointed him out, but listened to a little bit. Yeah, he knows his stuff.
Cool. Well, Arwen's hopefully going to be on mod duties, sticking his link in the chat. I don't know if you want to get your rival Mitchell from Australia's link as well, Arwen. Dun, dun, dun. Maybe. We'll see. But yeah, subscribe. Check him out. I mean, it's nice to scratch the backs of people who are on our side and promote them. So that's Made by Jim Bob. As I say, hopefully someone else, if not Arwen, will get Mitchell from Australia's link out there as well, so you can go and check him out as well. Brian, are you there? Oh, he's not.
Just 2 minutes, Nathan.
Yeah, no worries. I can plug all of this streams and stuff. Yeah, my YouTube ad revenue dropped. So pumping out the videos, that's what you got to do. Terrible that I'm reactive in these regards. Should be completely scheduled, but I'm not. In any event, I've got several videos that are coming out over the weekend One is called All Maps Prove Earth is Flat, and that is coming out on, I think it's Sunday at 10 p.m. UK time. There is also The End of the Earth, which comes out 10 o'clock tonight. That's on, both of those are on Nathan Oakley 1980 channel. So 10 o'clock tonight, The End of the Earth, and 10 o'clock on Sunday night, All Maps Prove Earth is Flat. After this show, so about three and a half hours after this show finishes, I've got a show coming out called Free Sextant. There's a whole lengthy title to it, which I won't read out. But basically, Free Sextant is the main part of the title, and that is a Kumu virus that was being discussed in the pre-show with our frustrations, which didn't make it to that edit, because it was after 2 hours of straight circle-jerking Fundy chanting. But the main points did make it to that video. So check all those out. They'll be coming out over the course of the next couple of days. Hopefully that bought Brian enough time. Probably not.
Hey, I'm back.
Yay! I've run out of things to plug, so good job.
Yeah, I'm just plugging in my computer. I'll share that now in a minute so I can share the screen. Yeah, so my latest video is, as I said earlier to you in the pre-show, it's a precursor to something that's coming down the line. Although it's still dealing with issues right now. The whole point of it is I'm focusing on what I call the angular free space. Now, some people might call it a field of view and different things like that. But it's not exactly the same as a field of view. Because people can argue, as Rumpus argued with me before about field of view, how field of view is a specific term connected to a specific thing. So someone can argue with me about that. But what I speak about is angular free space. So the best way to describe this is, if you think about the sun, the bottom of the sun, between the bottom of the sun and the horizon, let's just say, right, when the sun is at 70 degrees, or 50 degrees, let's just say, right, then that piece of, let's say, that piece of free space has an angular size. So when that sun is at 20 degrees above the horizon, that piece of free space between the bottom of it and the horizon also has an angular size. So basically what I'm talking about is the measuring, rather than trying to like people, this is the start of me doing it with the sun, but I'm measuring that angular free space, and I'm bringing it to a point where it goes into the 0.02 angular resolution limit of the human eye. So if you can imagine the sun, the closer it gets to the horizon, then that angular free space between the bottom of the sun and the horizon gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually, now I haven't done this with the sun yet. I haven't calculated it with the sun. I'm just using it as an example. Although the sun, there is a thing on the sun in my video, I haven't calculated it for the sun. But basically, that angular free space is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller the further from you that the sun gets. Now, to give an example, I used Ranty's 1 foot observation across to Barrow, which was to the shoreline was 13 miles, and it was another 5 miles then to the Barrow Town Hall. Now, Barrow Town Hall is 164 feet high, but even just to the shoreline. Now, I'm not talking about when he zoomed in. I'm talking about from being on the beach, looking across the water. Now, from a 1 foot observation, it may be a little less than this, but just looking across the water from the beach without a camera, anything that's less than 24 feet high, right, Ranty would not have been able to resolve at 13 miles away. Right, he can't resolve anything that's less than 24 feet high at 13 miles away. So it would be even more for 18 miles away. I didn't do the 18 mile away calculation, but let's just say 18 miles away was 30 feet. So even if there was nothing in the way of him seeing the Barrow Town Hall, there was just a straight horizontal between him and the Barrow Town Hall, then he would not be able to resolve the 30 foot at the bottom of it, let's just say. Now, it may not be 30 foot for the Barrow Town Hall, but I'm just saying 30 foot because it's 18 miles away, whereas to the shoreline, which was 13 miles away, was 24 feet. So if you can imagine that if the Barrow Town Hall was an extra 4 miles away, then let's say it could be 35 or 40 foot of Barrow Town Hall he wouldn't be able to resolve. So what becomes your horizon, and actually literally the horizon is basically your diffraction limit, is that your angular ability is what creates that, right? So if you have something like a star or the sun or the moon or whatever, you can measure the angular free space between that and the horizon, like you do with, like basically what sextants do. They measure the angle to something, right? But the angular free space might be slightly less than that because it's from the bottom of it, let's say with the sun, to the horizon underneath. So it might be a couple of degrees less. But the whole point is that angular free space is shrinking all the time the further from you that celestial object gets. So eventually that angular free space just ends up being your diffraction limit, because it goes into at enough of a distance, it goes past the 0.02 average angular resolution limit of the human eye. So eventually, what happens is that becomes your diffraction limit and your horizon. So when people think that they're seeing something setting like the sun, they're not seeing the sun setting. The sun is the angular free space between the horizon at the bottom of the sun has that free space has hit a point where you can't resolve it anymore. And the further the sun goes away from you, then from the bottom up, more of the sun, of your view to the sun is taken away, because you can't resolve that part at the bottom. But with the sun now, it's a little bit different because the sun has what's known as the sun mirage, and it's a refractive thing, because as we know, anywhere below 15 to 20 degrees will cause things like stars and stuff in the sky to appear higher than they actually are. But basically, the whole shtick of it is the angular free space, because the shrinking of that and the angular resolution limit at a distance for something. So what I did, I'm going to show now, and it just give me a minute or two. What I did is I did some calculations, right? You know the way I show what's the name of it now? Demonstration I show where something with optical drop on a table, where I move something away from the camera and it appears to go lower than the center of the lens. Do you know the demonstration I'm talking about? I'll show you in a minute.
Something away on a table. We've had it up a few times.
Yeah. So I'm just going to join Meet there. It's going to mute. I'll join on my computer, and I will show you what I mean. Okay. I'm just going to share screen. Just letting you know. I should be sharing there now. Any minute.
Okay, I think we're on.
Okay.
We can see a load of video feedback, but yeah, there we go.
Now, you might see some pop-ups happening up here. I can't do anything about that. So what I did was I did calculations, right, for sorry, right. So I did calculations for different. I showed this. I showed this and me moving it away, and how this area here. I'm just going to pause it. I show how this area here with the black line is actually higher. If I bring it in close, is higher than this white line. But this area here, this angular size here of this area from the black line down to the surface. How as I move it away, that gradually gets closer and closer, smaller and smaller. So appearing that it's shrinking down into the table, basically. And I show them with calculations that's 9 millimeters. My camera height is 9 millimeters. So kind of treating that black line to the bottom to the table as like 9 millimeters or 0.354 inches, right, of angular free space, right. So I can't, if I had a table that was 1,012 inches in distance, then I wouldn't be able to resolve that anymore. So that would look like that is gone. So it would look like this. It would look to like keep going forward and back. It would look like this here, this black line to the table. It would look like that the table is at the black line, because I wouldn't be able to resolve that amount of it. Even actually be below that a little bit, because that's a bit higher than the white line in reality. But we'll pretend for the moment that they're the same height. That piece of angular free space here would end up just looking like it's part of the table if the table was 1,012 inches in length, right? But the thing about it is right, right. I had earlier on I showed how 6 feet of angular free space will disappear or reaches the 0.02 angular resolution limit at 17,189 feet, right? So if you're standing with a 6 foot observer height out over the water, then at 3.255 miles away, right, then that the amount from your oil line to the water, that amount of angular free space won't be resolvable past 3.255 miles away. And I show how the average sailboat of about 15 feet in length sits on average about 4 foot over the waterline. So you won't see all of that 4 foot. You might see, you won't really see, I don't think you'll see any of the 4 foot. You won't be able to resolve it. So there'll be a 4 foot off the water, 15-foot sailboat that you won't be able to see. You will be only able to see the sail that's above that. You won't be able to resolve that 4 foot that's coming out of the water. You won't be able to do that. Your average eyes won't be able to do that. So I'll just show down here where 6 foot divides into 3.255 miles, 2,865 times, and 0.354 inches divides into 1,012 inches, 2,859 times. So they're very similar. So they're very similar calculations. They're very close to each other. But what this actually proves, someone is feeding back there. I don't know who it is. Someone's in. What this actually proves is that the closer that your oil line is to the surface, because if you look at here, like this is a 6 foot oil line, right? And it takes 3.255 miles for that same amount from your oil line down to the surface of the water. It takes 3.255 miles for that amount of angular free space to be not resolvable, right? But from just 0.354 inches, which is 9 millimeters, 8 or 9 millimeters, right? That divides into 1,012 inches, almost the same amount of times. But the point is that the closer this proves that the closer your eyes are to the surface, the sooner your 0.02 resolution limit will occur. So we're standing looking over the water, and we're told for decades that we're seeing boats disappear over the horizon 3 miles and 4 miles away, when we're not, because of our very low, because we're only, our average eyes of somebody, if you're talking about the average normal men and women, it's probably about 5'4", right, is the oil line. Right, 5 foot to 5'4" is probably the average. Women are obviously going to have a lower oil line. Men will have a higher oil line, but not every man will have a 6 foot oil line. I'm 5'11" or almost 6 foot, but my oil line is not 6 foot. So if you treat it that way, it's like that's a very small height. But even though it's only 6 foot, I still can see for 3.255 miles before that amount of angular free space is not resolvable. But when my eyes are only 0.354 inches off of the surface, then at only 1,012 inches, that little 0.354 inches won't be resolvable past 1,012 inches. So it's like their claims for decades about us seeing boats going over the horizon. Now, there's inferior mirages and there's all kinds of other things that we know that we've argued about for 6 years that go on too. But the point is that you won't see that 4 foot off the water sailboat 3.255 miles away. because you can't resolve that 4 foot. You will still see the sail, but you won't see the 4 foot. That's the point. So anyone anything to say about it?
I'm backing it up with some of Ranty's photos that I've dug out while you were doing your presentation as you were talking about him. So at the start I had your, it coincidentally was the clock that we talked about yesterday with Akuma virus. So that's part, it did make it into the edit. So when he's saying we get a straight line to it, you're talking about the town hall and the clock. Now obviously this isn't cropped and zoomed in nicely, but oh, damn it, there's an arrow pointing right over where I've got the clock in the image, but there we go. Let's just see if I can transition it to make it a little bit prettier. So about here-ish when I move my mouse away and it stops bringing up those stupid flashy arrows. But also just some of Ranty's images with boats getting compressed towards the horizon. Just to back up what you were saying while you were saying it. But yeah, has anybody else got any comment on this?
But if I'm still sharing there, I'm showing a photo from claimed geodesist Jesse Kozlowski from 2016. And I went through this with him in 2016. And he also had a run-in with QE in 2016, strangely enough, over the same topic. And I spent 4 days arguing with the guy, trying to get him to tell me whether he included angular size change in his deliberations for his view here across the lake, where he was saying the center of his theodolite, his center lens, was higher than the marker at the back, at the other side of this small lake, whereas he's saying they should be exactly in line if it was a flat earth. And I explained to him, you're going to have angular size change. Did you take that into account? 4 days of arguing before he admitted after 4 days that he never took angular size change into account. That's how dishonest that guy is. It took 4 days. If I wasn't so persistent, if I was a less persistent person, I wouldn't have got it out of him. Only because I knew he was full of it and he was lying. And I didn't know much about geodetic surveying at the time, but I knew bits and pieces, and I knew what was going on. Instinctively knew what it was. But I guarantee you, if you did the angular size calculations on the height of his marker at that exact distance, that they would match exactly what we're looking at. You know, so like they are basically, as you said, Nathan, over the years they hijacked perspective, and they did. They've hijacked perspective and called it Earth curve. They've hijacked the angular resolution limit and the angular size of things and call it Earth curve. And Google Earth are still doing it, as they're trying to give the impression that things look like they've gone over the curve of a globe Earth, when all they've done is extended the angular size of something. They've made it smaller than a real life angular size would be in the distance. That's all they're doing. So they're literally extending the amount of angular change something has in the distance, just to make it look like it's gone over a curve. Because if they do actually make something look like it's gone over a curve, it won't look like reality, because we don't see that happening.
Shout out to Godzilla37. He says, shout out to Bobby and Virus. Without those empty cans rattling around the chat would be harmonious. Nah, shout out Refracted. Never mind. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support, Godzilla37. Okay, thank you for going through it, Brian. Was there other bits that you wanted to go through? Here we go. Yep. Got you. You want to go through this? It's Barrow, right? You're on mute, by the way, Brian.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute, Nathan. Yeah, this is just a video I took where I'm about 77 feet or something like that above the water, and I'm already zoomed here a bit. This is land a couple of miles away from me. There's water between me and that land, and then there's water beyond that land and an island across the way. Now, my oil line is over here somewhere. It's below the height of this island here. It's somewhere down here, about a third of the way down or something like that. So I'm just show with this. Now, it's not perfect because my tripod wasn't brilliant, and it was a bit windy up where it was, top of a cliff. but it still gives it still shows what I wanted to show. So as I zoom away, right, that whole area there, so that little area there, I actually, what I'll do is, one second, I'll do something here now. I'm just going to unshare my screen a moment, and I'll share it again. One second now. Here we go. I just need to stop presenting for a second, and then I'll get the video, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I don't want to have my screen shared when I'm going into my own computer. And where are we?
Do not adjust your sets. This is not a technical issue.
No, I'm just trying to find the sorry, I'm going to have to go back to the video because it's not. I can't find what I'm looking for right now. So I'll go back to the video a second. I'll have to use the video. It's just going to take too long for me to find that. But I can show you on the video. So I'll go back again to here, right? And I'll show you what's going on here. Okay, as you can see from the top of this island here to this piece of land down here, there is an angular free space. Let's just say, from, if we look at it, there is a vertical angular free space, right? So this piece of land here at the bottom, at the shoreline, to the top of this island here, right? It takes up this and much space. But when I play it and I bring it forward, I will do now, you can see that bit by bit it gets smaller. That angular free space gets smaller. And now I look like I'm basically looking over the top of the island, when I'm not really, because my eye height is only about 3/4 way up or halfway up the island. But that little angular free space, as you can see, that's starting to become an horizon. So I didn't want that to happen, sorry. Right, that wasn't meant to happen. Yeah, that's starting to become an horizon. So as the further back I go, you can see that there's only a tiny little thing out at the distance. But when I zoom back to it, I do in a minute, yeah. If I just add the video, but I can't find it. As you can see, it gets bigger. So it's basically that piece of angular free space gets smaller and gets bigger. Theirs gets smaller, bigger. Right. Don't have the video, that's what I need. I wasn't prepared for this, sorry. And as you can see, it gets smaller. But the whole point I'm trying to make, here, and I would make if I had the video, would be that this little area here, this angular free space here between that piece of land here on the top of the island, and the island is 18 or 19 miles away. So that little piece here, that eventually, if I move back, right, the further I can move back from that, or it can move back from me, then that angular free space will just get to a point where it's just the horizon, because I can't resolve it. But that's the whole point. It's like we're being told for a long time that things are going over the horizon. They're not going over the horizon. The angular resolution of your eye stops you being able to see, let's just say, the distance between the bottom of the sun and the water or horizon underneath. That piece of angular space, that eventually just shrinks into nothing. So nothing is going over not that we think it is. We know it's not, because the horizon is not a geometric location. But the point is that that's what we were told for a long time, that what was happening, and it's not. It's an angular resolution issue, and that's all it is. So I leave it go at that, because I don't have the video I want to show you. But thanks for letting me present anyway.
That was good. Thank you very much for going through it with me. Or us, I should say. Excellent stuff.
Hashtag shit shrinks.
Damn chocolate. Yeah, when you mentioned QE earlier, I resisted the temptation to put out his hashtag. Exactly. Stuff gets smaller into the distance. Seems so obvious, but the fact that you had to take 4 days to get Jesse Kozlowski to admit he doesn't incorporate that is because, that is the circle jerk do-si-do that they have to do, because anybody who's paying attention for those 4 days will lose interest after about a day. And then when he finally concedes it, no one's paying attention anymore. They're all bored. Oh, this is a terrible show, if they're reading through the comments.
See, it's correct that things do shrink, right? It's like hashtag shit shrinks, but it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it than that, because they've basically taken basically what is optical drop, and they've called it Earth curve for years. That's what they've done. They've taken something that's just an effective perspective and called it Earth curve, and was something that's not really known. And the first person that I heard about this from, not directly, but I heard about it some years ago, was Journalism, when he spoke about Samuel Rowbotham. Now, every time Samuel Rowbotham's name comes up, all you ever hear from people, and unfortunately from our side as well, is that he was a con man, right? Now, I haven't seen any evidence that he was a con man, but I keep hearing from people that he was a con man. And the ballers especially say straight away, oh, he was a con man, or he was this, or he was that. That's all they ever do. But the thing about it is that what he did, what a lot of people don't realize, is that geodetic surveyor, Wallace, was that the guy's name? There was a geodetic surveyor who him and can't remember, there was another man again, ended up going to jail because he knew this surveyor was a lawyer. He knew this guy was a lawyer, and he was trying to get the truth out of this guy, and things got violent, and he ended up going to jail because he knew this guy was a lawyer. But Rowbotham, what this guy did is that Rowbotham, he looked at, it's claimed that Rowbotham looked across a canal, and with his eye line 8 inches above the canal. So he had his telescope 8 inches above the canal, and he could see for 6 miles, whatever, straight down along the canal. And this guy came along, and I would say he was probably a mason or something. That's speculation, but he was definitely a con man, because he came along and started talking about refraction, right? And of course, he brought 7/6R into it. This guy did, right? And he claimed that what would happen is, if he went higher, what would happen is that all the markers, if he went higher and made a parallel with the surface of the canal, just like Kozlowski did in 2016, same exact thing, that the markers in the distance would drop because they're going over the curve of the Earth, and he'd be up high enough, and he'd be out of the refractive zone, right? The zone where it would allow for the most refraction for things to be lifted up. Because he was stating that what Rowbotham was saying was only a refraction, right? Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that Rowbotham came back afterwards and annihilated his claim with optical drop, because with a judge there, Rowbotham said, I'm going to do the exact same thing as he did, right? And he said, and what's going to happen is things are going to drop in the distance, and then I'm going to line up my telescope with the first 2 markers. So he brought his telescope up and he dropped it at an angle to line up with the first 2 markers. He said, and if the rest of the markers line up after that, he said, then you know that it's flat. But if they still fall away, then it's a globe, and they all lined up with it. And never do you hear about that story. Journalism presented it. I can't remember the full details of it, but he has it in a book. He presented it some years ago. Is that it was very clever out of Rowbotham what he did, but he proved that optical drop was a real thing. He proved it was a real thing, and he disproved this other geodetic surveyor. But if you look at the history books, they have it that this geodetic surveyor disproved Rowbotham, and that is not the case. This geodetic surveyor was a lawyer, just like Kozlowski that we've dealt with since 2016, is another liar. So all these people, there's a lot of these people out there who are hiding behind their professions, and they lie and get away with it simply because they have a profession. They hide behind their profession to get away with telling. They're just a liar, regardless of what they are. I don't care if they're a surgeon, an airplane pilot, a surveyor. They're a liar, right? If you're a liar, you're a liar. And people, Jesse Kozlowski has gotten away with being a liar, and this other man, I think his name was Wallace, has gotten away with, and in the history books on Wikipedia and everything, he got away with being a liar, and it's still touted that this guy debunked Rowbottom. Well, Rowbottom came back and absolutely annihilated the guy's claim with optical drop.
Perfect. Just a quick shout out to Retro Bill, who says, Nathan, do I need to make an appointment to make this super chat? When is a convenient time for you? Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Retro Bill. But with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the PayPal link, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Also, of course, a massive thank you to today's live Discord and G+ panels for making the show possible. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!